This episode's presented to you by Audible. Man, it's this like really great service where you can get audiobooks for basically your iPhone, Android, MP3 players, your Kindles. It works on basically everything. What? But it works on basically every platform. You get one free book just by signing up, and you get to keep the book. Even if you don't like the service, if you're like, man, this is too expensive, I'm only listening to one book a month kind of thing, or I only really liked this one book, you get to keep the book. Other streaming services, Pandora, Spotify, if you cancel your thing, you don't have this music anymore. With Audible, you keep the book. I've got it. I get to keep it. If I cancel my Audible account, I still have it. I can listen to it whenever I want. So check out Audible. You get one free month from us plus one free book, which you can keep. And all you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/MDXpods. Sign up. You get something for free, and you also help out one of your favorite podcasts. So check it out, and let's get on with the show. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. This is episode 11, and we're going to be talking about True Grit. Once again, my name is Mike, and with me as always is Dustin. How you doing, Dustin?
Doing well. Thank you very much. How are you, Michael?
I am fantastic. I really enjoyed watching these movies, and I'm looking forward to talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Or talking about them.
Well, we can talk to them.
We could talk to them. I mean, I kind of did. I think at one point I yelled at Maddie when she was fighting a snake. So I definitely talked to the movie, and we'll get into that. So this episode is going to be the first. We're going to be trying a different format for it. We're going to actually cut the news segment out and just kind of keep that in the little mid episodes, the 0.5 episodes where we talk about the next week's episode. I just think that'll streamline the main episodes and just give us a lot more time to talk about the movie. So I think that's what we're going to try to do, unless the fans demand that we change it. But I think it'll give us more time to talk about the movie. So especially something like this, I think we've got a lot to talk about. So we watched True Grit, the 1969 John Wayne classic, and the 2010
Coen Brothers.
Coen Brothers classic.
those little-known brothers.
These
relatively unknown.
These independent filmmakers, the Joel and Ethan Coen.
Yeah, you guys watch out for them. They're gonna be big.
They're gonna be big. And Jeff Bridges. Yeah, I don't know who this guy is. Anyway, two amazing movies. I actually enjoyed watching them. I think if we don't set criteria, we're gonna wander. So, what do you think we should be talking about this week?
I mean, I think we definitely need to touch on all the characters, right? Like, I mean,
So
not every character, but Rooster,
Maddie,
LaBeef. I don't know if we need to go into like Ned Pepper and Tom Chaney, but
I think a little bit in Chaney. I do want to discuss him a little bit, but I don't think.
I mean, the other thing that's crazy is like there were a ton, even in the '69 one. There's like big names like Robert Duvall and Dennis Hopper.
Well,
in that movie.
Before they were big, but yeah, Robert Duvall was in it. Dennis Hopper had like a little bit role.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
But...
And then even in in the remake one, you have Josh Brolin and Barry Pepper.
Pepper as
Gleason
Pepper
is in it.
Domhnall Gleeson, one of our favorites from Dredd.
And
General
he had
the same haircut.
He did have the same haircut.
Same haircut as Dredd. Barry Pepper as
too.
Yeah, Barry Pepper as Lucky Ned Pepper is fantastic casting. Same name. He could just respond to his name. Didn't have to, get into character. Really easy for him, I'm sure.
So yeah, the characters. I don't know. What else do you think? I think the tone is drastically different in both of these movies.
We definitely need to talk about the tone, and I definitely think we need to talk about True Grit, what grit means. And because I felt like what made Rooster Cogburn gritty, yeah, was different in both movies. I think
very different.
They define him differently as to why, like the reason why Maddie gets him in both movies is slightly different. So I think it's important we talk about what True Grit is and just what I think that kind of goes in hand with the tone. But I think we should specifically talk about that.
Yeah,
cool. I don't think I think that's enough to get us going. I'm sure we'll have some tangents, but I think that'll kind of guide us along. So you want to start with you want to just kind of do a rough summary of the movie for me?
Yeah, so essentially what happens is Maddie Ross's father is murdered, and I guess being just the most capable person in her family takes charge of the whole operation of like recovering the body, making the funeral arrangements. But she also has ideas of her own about tracking down the man that murdered her father. And so while she's in town, she's trying to hire, a marshal to go out into the Indian Territory to not only, bring him to justice or kill him, but she wants to go along as well. And both movies, I think, absolutely adhere to that kind of framework. I did think in the original one, you got to, like, see why she gave a damn about her dad a little bit more. Like, just briefly it touched on it.
The new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the original one, like, he comes and he, like, I'm going to go, you take care of the family, I'll be back in a couple of days, I'm going to make sure that we have some money, blah, 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 blah. And then it shows him being, like, a good guy, trying to look out for his workers. So when Cheney goes and he's, like, playing cards or something, feels he's cheated, he goes to his, like, cabin to go get a gun, and he's going to go, like, kill these people he was playing cards with. And the father was just like, no, you're drunk, let's just calm down. And then he gets killed. So you do see that this man is a good man. At least in the little bit that we see. And then, of course, like you said, she goes and takes care of business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's a fairly straight, and simple revenge story.
Yeah. And I think in both movies, the Maddie Ross character is really well done.
I agree.
I like her in both.
I agree. So you want to start with Maddie? Since, she's
sure, we can start
character.
with Maddie. Yeah.
One of the things I thought was interesting, though, even in the original one, so this one was 1969, and the actress, I don't see her name, I forgot to write it down, who played Maddie Ross, was actually billed first in the 1969 one, which I think is actually pretty impressive.
Above John Wayne?
So she was billed first over John Wayne. I think John Wayne may have got the and John Wayne, or, with John Wayne towards the end of it, but yeah, she was billed first, which I thought was pretty impressive. But she was, one of the things I thought was funny about this is both movies they call Maddie ugly. They say she's not a looker. And,
yeah.
And
That's
she
pretty
had
cruel.
a boy's hair. Yeah, very cool. She had a boy's haircut, kind of, in the original movie. Like, she had a very short hair. But she's still a very pretty girl. I thought it was weird that they were just calling her ugly.
Yeah, I thought it was also weird that, like, the people calling her ugly are, like, grown men all the time. It's really weird. It's like, who cares what she looks like? She's a child.
Especially, yeah, she's supposed to be 14 years old, and, like, LaBeef is, like, she's, like, in bed. She wakes up, and he's, like, there.
Yeah, just creeping hella hard.
Creeping,
he's staring at
like,
her while she's sleeping.
And he's like, I thought about kissing you, but then I realized you're ugly.
Oh, yeah, you're sick and ugly.
Yeah,
Something
like,
like that.
What the fuck is wrong
Get
with you,
out
man?
of
Like,
there,
you're
creeper.
40. You're
Yeah.
a 40-year-old country music star peeping on this 14-year-old girl.
I did like that she called him a rodeo clown. That was funny.
Yeah. So what I really liked, I feel like the original Maddie was a lot more skeptical. Like, I don't feel like she was as confident in some regards as the newer one. So in this one, like, she holds her own. It's very obvious she's intelligent, and she goes and haggles with the guy who sold her dad these, like, ponies to, like, get more money than the dad paid for him, and get him to pay for the saddle that was lost and all these different things that happened. And she just she was a little whiny. She's like, I'm gonna go get my lawyer and everything, and then ultimately she got what she wanted, and she already had, like, these letters from the lawyer pre-written.
Yeah.
So she's very intelligent,
and very
but
focused.
very focused. I think she played up being a girl a little bit more. Like, in both movies, there's a point where they're like, a widow and 3 children, and you're gonna take advantage of a little girl. I think in this one, she played it up a little bit more and was a little. She never cried, but
yeah,
I think she used her feminine wiles a little bit more in the original one.
I would agree.
Very smart, very capable female character. I was really impressed with her for a movie that takes place in the late 60s to have a strong female lead like this.
Yeah, it was impressive, and it was cool. Like that, I had no problem with that character in either of the movies.
No, me neither.
I guess, we got to move on to the rooster, right?
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to say about her was, what I thought was also impressive is everybody tries to take advantage of her, and she's always like, while she might whine and be like, don't take advantage of me, like, she would prove that they shouldn't. Like, when Rooster and LaBeef ultimately teamed up and they abandoned her, like
Yeah,
she tracked
yeah.
him down and found them.
Oh, when
Kind
she
of
like
thing.
crosses
So
the river with her horse and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then like they're super impressed, and by the end of the movie, like basically everyone was like, "No, you're an equal, like you're badass, like you're a badass chick, and you can handle your own out here." And like even the villains, Pepper
Yeah.
is like, "I'm gonna like I give you my word, like you're a fighter, and like I'm gonna make sure you're not harmed by any of my bad guys. Like we're just gonna use you until we can get rid of, get far enough away from Rooster." But like I respect you, which was I think was really cool. Like there was never a point where like she did get in these damsel in distress situations, but it was different. It's not like a standard like Lois Lane damsel in
No,
distress.
she's not
kind
there
of
just to
situation.
be a victim. Like she has her own agency throughout the movie. I feel. I mean, hell, she's going out there. She wants to see the man that killed her father dead.
Yeah,
Like it's pretty grim work.
Yeah, and she keeps these like a U.S. Marshal and a Texas Ranger in check.
Yeah.
Impressive. Like they make fun of her a little bit, but ultimately, like they do what she says.
Yeah, and I think, the point of this movie, too, is, like, the bad guys are obviously bad dudes, but so are the good guys. Like, all of the dudes that can live in this world are bad dudes. Like, they know how to survive, live off the land, they're sleeping outside, and they're just murdering each other. Like, there's a lot of killing going on in this world. Like, as soon as she gets to the town, they're watching 3 people get hanged.
Yeah, you know what was interesting about that hanging scene is so her black servant. I don't know if he was a slave. If this had to have been post Civil War because
It was post Civil War.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like a servant, cattle ranch hand or whatever, and he's like, "Don't watch the hanging," and she like watches it and she's disturbed by it. But this whole movie is her wanting to watch another man die. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird time, man.
Yep,
that's why they called it the Wild West.
They did call it that.
Even though they weren't that far west.
No, they were in Arkansas, right?
yeah. They didn't make it that far before the shit really popped off.
All right. So you want to talk about Rooster Cogburn real quick?
Rooster Cogburn.
Played by the famous, legendary John Wayne. I felt like this was just every other John Wayne character ever.
It was just
with an eye patch.
Yep. That's all they did. Like
a little fatter and older.
Oh, look at him. He's got an eye patch. It's totally different.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I just didn't feel like the presence was there. Like I feel like John Wayne is better in other John Wayne movies than in this movie.
I agree. Absolutely. Like definitely his ones where he's like generals in like World War II and World War One. Some of his other cowboy movies, he's much more commanding. In this one, I felt like he was reading off like cue cards,
like just off screen. Like it was some guy was out there holding them up.
I didn't actually like write down any lines, but there were so many lines where he would have like these long, awkward pauses where he'd be like, if let's say the line is like, "I'm gonna get the girl to Albuquerque," he'd be like, "I'm gonna get the girl to Albuquerque."
Yeah, it was it's like choppy and clunky.
Yeah, it was really weird, his line delivery.
That is super weird. The other thing that's weird is when you compare it to what Jeff Bridges was doing in, like, yes, granted, he does have like the marble mouth thing that he kind of does when he does these kind of Western roles, but there are so many more memorable lines. Like I did not write down one line that John Wayne said, and I wrote down a bunch of them that Jeff Bridges had said, and then I realized a lot of them are delivered in both movies. They're just entirely forgettable in the John Wayne.
A lot of these scenes in this movie are almost line for line reenactments in the modern one. Like some of the scenes that take place in day and the new one take place at night, but a lot of these scenes are verbatim. Especially a lot of the stuff with the early stuff with LaBeef before because his character was much larger in the second one.
Yeah.
But getting back to Rooster, we didn't really talk about what he's about, but he is a U.S. Marshal, and he's supposed to be out of 3 people recommended to Maddie to go capture Cheney. He was the one that was said to be the best. And in this movie, while like we see him in a courtroom thing, and they got like this lawyer talking about how he's killed 23 people over the course of his 4 years as a marshal.
Yeah, he's testifying like about the people that he brought in. He's a witness in the cross-examination. The defense guy is trying to paint him out to be just a cold-blooded murderer.
Which is interesting because in this one, in the original one, when the recommendation is made for him, they mention that he always tries to get the men alive. Like if he has to kill them, he will. And John Wayne's character, or Cogburn, makes that argument. He's like, I've never shot anybody I didn't have to. And
they both say something to that effect when they're on the witness stand.
But he brought 3 men back alive in like a cart. So it's like, it's interesting that this lawyer is trying to paint him as this like murderous, like cowardly guy who kills people from behind when he just brought back 3 men who are much younger and probably in better shape than himself.
Oh, yeah. And if you just compare the courtroom scenes in both of the movies, like you get, I think comparing those 2 scenes perfectly illustrates the differences between the way these characters are played.
Those scenes were line for line the same.
Just like, damn near, yeah. Like, and they're wildly different. Like, you leave with wildly different impressions of Rooster Cogburn.
Absolutely, I agree. Some of the other things in like this Rooster Cogburn, he's not that great as a shooter and everything. Like he's smarter than like the average person. No, the original one.
Okay, the original.
Too.
All
like,
right.
Yeah, he there's several points in where he's like trying to shoot things that he misses like later on with the snake, but he's smart. Like he sets up these like scenarios when there's like a point where they come up across this like cabin and they find Moon, who's played by I just forgot, Dennis Hopper, and like some other guy, and he like tricks them into trying to talk to him and find out where Pepper and of course Chaney are going to be, and then he sets up a trap because like those guys are going to end up coming back there. And then LaBeef ends up foiling it, but like he's a bit of a schemer in this one.
I think he has to be. I mean, they do a similar thing in the remake. You know, like they go to the place. She like creeps up on the roofs. They stuff up the chimney, and like when they're in there, like I mean, again, I think we're gonna keep talking about how these scenes were redone and done better. You know, I think that's gonna be pretty consistent. But I love it when like she jams up the chimney and then they start yelling, you know, from inside the cabin, and he's like, "Who's out there?" And he's like, "It's me and 5 other U.S. Marshals." It's like he's totally lying about who's out there. And it was like,
he's like, "Bet your life on it."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like what it really reminded me of like playing Dungeons and Dragons, you know, and like coming up with these like stupid ruses that they're probably not going to believe, but you're doing it anyway.
And then you roll the dice and it works.
And then you see what happens. Yeah. And you know, in that scene also, I mean, it's so great when they're inside and he's like investigating and like he is a schemer. Like when he's looking at the pot of Sofkey or whatever, he's like, "That's a lot of Sofkey for 2 people." And they're like, "Oh, well, we're making tonight's dinner and breakfast. I like a big breakfast," you know, because they don't want to. Like you can tell that Rooster knows more people are coming already.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, and then Gleason's character starts mouthing off too much, you know, gets his fingers chopped off and stabbed.
Well, that's in the newer one. So
yeah.
Let's not talk about that too much yet. But I think the other thing is like they do try to portray John Wayne's Cogburn as like a drunk. Like there is a scene where he's like living at a Chinaman's house and
that's
like
not the
sleeping
preferred
next to some
nomenclature.
Potatoes. What was that?
Nothing.
No, okay. I'll hear it in the playback when I'm editing. It'll be a surprise for the edit.
Yeah.
He's like drinking whiskey and everything, and like they're saying like he's drunk and he woke up too late and everything like that. But I don't really see that. Like once again, we've already talked about. He's just John Wayne.
Yeah.
I think we should briefly talk about LaBeef. LaBeef was played by like a country music star in the original one. And he's kind of like a glorified cameo. Like he pops up for a scene here and there, and then he's gone for a while, and then he comes back. Yeah. And he does save the day. Like he like cracks Chaney over the head.
Yeah.
And you know gives Maddie the chance to like ultimately kill him, but he dies in this one. I don't really have much to say. I mean he also was like we already talked about him being kind of perverted and like peeping on Maddie.
Yeah.
But he also spanked her.
Yeah. That's not okay.
He did it in both moves. This one he went and like grabbed a tree branch and
switch.
like he made a switch and like hit her.
Yeah, that's
and
not
like
okay.
John Wayne's watching, and then finally he's like, John Wayne's like, "You've got your jollies. I'm gonna shoot you if you keep doing it."
Yeah, I'll fucking kill you, dude. This is weird.
Yeah, he was really weird.
Knock it off. I can't sit here and watch this.
Yeah. This character is weird. I definitely liked Matt Damon's portrayal better, and we'll talk about that when we move into the modern one.
I think you get that feeling too from both. That's probably where the Rooster Cogburns are the most similar when they're ready to shoot him for whipping a little girl out in broad daylight in the middle, like at all. Like it's just like it's so weird and fucked up.
It's weird. In the original, I don't feel like Robert Duvall's character as Pepper. I think it was like a. I mean, he was a thief and a scoundrel, but I think there was a sense of honor, like a code.
Yeah.
He was very articulate, and he was very, like, he mentioned at some point, like, he doesn't really like going after women and children, and he, like, gives his word to Maddie that she'll be safe while in his care, and that he will make sure that somebody goes back to go get Cheney.
Yeah.
To make sure that he's not... So I liked him. I've always liked Robert Duvall. He was really good in this. I felt like he did a lot with a very little amount of dialogue.
He did.
It's not much to say about him. He was just like, the boss of the bandits.
The boss of the bad guys. Yeah. I mean, he was like
he seemed pretty good. Like, he seemed like he had this, like, code and that he wasn't going to break it. Very similar to Rooster in that regards. Like, Rooster turned out like he was like a bandit at one point too, before the war, but he only went after like banks and stuff. He never went after people or like caravans and stuff like that. So I did think that was interesting that these guys both had a similar code, even though they were on opposite sides of the law.
Right.
So I don't think I have anything else for the characters, at least in the original one. I'm sure we're going to refer back to them a lot when we start talking about the newer one.
Yeah.
So what was the next thing we were supposed to talk about? The grittiness? The tone. This one was a lot more like... I didn't mention it at the top, but I hadn't seen either of these movies before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And while I liked them both, this one was weird, with, it being called True Grit. And I knew that the newer one was pretty dark and grim. I just thought this one was going to be dark and grim for, a 60s movie. But it was pretty, like, happy-go-lucky, Maddie, even though, was kind of cracked one-liners here and there. John Wayne cracked some one-liners. And, by the end of it, they were, like, liking each other and they were happy. And it was weird.
It was just kind of hokey.
It didn't feel grim at all.
No.
Like, one of the notes that I wrote was not gritty at all.
No grit. False grit.
Yeah. And, like, it ends with a freeze frame. Like, so... when the day's all saved and everything like that, like, Maddie gets bitten by a rattlesnake and he, like, saves her and brings her back and everything's okay. He makes, like, a bet. She's like, she's going to pull through. And then at the end, there's a freeze frame as she says, like, there's no way he can jump over a gate. He's too old. And then he jumps over it and ends in a freeze frame as with him, like, midair over the gate.
Yeah.
Like,
well, dude, the movie starts with, like, that hokey-ass song where it's like, someday,
the True Grit theme
little
song.
Girl. It's like, oh my God, what am I
Sing
watching?
it again, man?
That's all
Give
I
me
got.
a few more bars.
I don't know any more of the words. I just wrote down, someday, little girl, so bad and condescending was my note.
But other than that, like, yeah, it was just a really... I didn't even feel like it was darker than other Westerns. Like, Clint Eastwood had much darker Westerns, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars, everything like that. Like, this story could have gone super dark, and it does,
well, and
30
also,
years in the future,
tonally,
in the future.
Like, the tone is set by, like, the setting, and it seems very bright, very colorful. The costumes don't do a whole lot for the original.
Yeah, the costumes were, like, what the generic Western costumes, like, the Western movies of the 60s, the spaghetti Westerns, they're not authentic movies. Like, they're all just wearing really tight slacks and, like, white dress shirts and, kind of thing like that. The town was very bright. It was very colorful. I don't know. Maybe I just watched, like, the HD version that I watched of this was, like, remastered. Like, it didn't even look like an old movie, really.
No, not really. I don't know. It didn't transport me to a different place in time, And, like,
no.
It didn't seem like that hard to survive. It didn't seem like, like, in the new one, when they're talking about going out into the Indian territory, they're like, hey, yeah, it's like, we're going to be sleeping on the ground. It's going to be really uncomfortable, and it's going to be cold, and, there's not going to be a lot of food. And, like, this didn't seem like that at all to me.
No, yeah, they talk about, there's even like, we'll get into it. But, yeah, I just felt like this was, could be, like, just some, like, it was filmed in a town that, in California or Albuquerque or something like that used to be an Old West town, but they've, like, kept it up so that way people can do, like, tours and stuff, like Old Town Sacramento. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it still has a lot of the original buildings, and they've got shops and stuff in it now. But they do what's called dust days in the middle of the summer, and they put dirt all over the ground to make it look like Old West. Like, it looks like it's just a town that they've kept up for the last 100 years, and they just filmed for it. Like, it didn't look authentic. It didn't look like it was taking place in the 1800s or
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, it didn't at all. All right, well, there's the tone.
And grit. Let's describe what grit is. So we kind of talked about it a little bit towards the beginning. So Maddie goes to Rooster Cogburn because she says he has true grit based off the recommendation from the sheriff. So the sheriff like recommends 2 or 3 people, but strongly recommends Rooster because he's mean.
Rooster Cogburn is recommended as, so the guy said, and this happens in both movies, they say the meanest is Rooster Cogburn. He's a pitiless man, double tough, and fear don't enter into his thinking. I think that applies a lot more to the Jeff Bridges Rooster Cogburn than the John Wayne one.
I mean, I don't think John Wayne ever really showed any fear in any of these situations.
But he also didn't come across as like pitiless and tough, you know, like he didn't seem as like worn down by the world as
he didn't seem not at all. He also just
it seemed more like I'm going to go on a western adventure with Uncle Rooster Cogburn. Hoop-a-doo. Yeah. Like it didn't make any sense.
He also just like, once again, just the way he delivered the lines, just like all these awkward pauses, and just like maybe he had several mini strokes while filming this movie. I don't know.
I mean, I think Maddie had way more grit than Rooster in this movie.
She was much more confident, and like even LaBeef, like I felt like LaBeef was grittier than and meaner than Rooster Cogburn in the original movie.
Yeah,
he was dumber. Like he
was dumb as hell.
He ruined the like the ambush that Rooster set up at that cabin when the first time you see Pepper, you know, when he goes to check on those guys that Dennis Hopper and the other guy, you know, after they died.
Yeah.
Like, but he still felt grittier than Cogburn.
Yeah, it was really weird.
So,
but what are we saying is grit? What makes you gritty?
So the gritty, it's supposed to be being mean, being, you know, just tough as nails and, you know, willing to get the job done kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, he got the job done, but I didn't feel like he was tough as nails. Like I felt like he was an old man who was just like out in the West, and you know, he was supposed to be the hero, so he was the hero.
Yeah.
Like he was just written to be the hero, and that, like, I felt it was just like the script. I didn't believe that.
It's like, he's got True Grit because the movie's called True Grit. That's it. Like I guess so. It was kind of a throwaway.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else to say about the original? I do got one thing to say about the original before we
what do you got?
Transition. One of the things I thought was funny, and I did mention at the top of the episode that I talked to this movie when I meant to say we're going to talk about it, but I did talk to the movie when so Maddie falls down this thing. So when she kills Cheney, this gun that she has is like way bigger than what she can handle.
Yeah.
So like the recoil like sends her tumbling backwards. She falls down this like pit. And throughout this movie, they talk about there's like this pit where these guys hang out that is filled with rattlesnakes. And she falls in said pit.
Which seems like a weird place to choose to hang out.
I guess.
Oh, we're going to go hang at the snake pit. Me and the boys crack open some cold ones. I think it kind of
makes more sense in the newer one because like there were a couple bodies down there.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe they throw people into the pit. But in this one, she falls down.
What a weird thing to have.
I know,
Did
right?
people still have... One, did people ever actually have snake pits? And two, did they have them in like the late 1800s?
I mean, I think this was a naturally occurring snake pit.
Okay. They just found it and took it over? Like, they set up their bad guy camp. It's like, oh, well, This is a great place for a bad guy lair. We already have a snake pit. It came with the snake pit, guys. And it's free.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm with you.
But anyway, she falls down the thing, and like the snake is, you know, looking at her. But, you know, I'm not a herpetologist, but I, you know, dabbled, as we know, in science.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I've handled reptiles and stuff. Like I've had, you know, Katrina used to have a snake. You know, I've been around them. And I know if they're agitated, you don't fucking piss them off even more. So, like, the snake is getting agitated, but his rattle's not going off. And she grabs, like, a leaf and just starts smacking the shit out of the snake. It's like, that's not what you do in that situation. You fucking, like, your leg is broken or your arm is broken. You can't move. Don't put yourself in a situation where you cannot dodge a snake attack. Like, don't fucking keep hitting him with a leaf.
But she's got to get out of the pit, right? She's in the pit.
What's that? She's in the pit.
You can't get that far away. I think if you're going to start whacking it, you got to make sure you kill it, right?
Exactly. Like, and a leaf is not going to do it. It was
probably
like a branch.
No,
like
probably not. I've never seen anyone kill a snake with a leaf.
A yo-yo, yes.
A yo-yo?
Not a leaf.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rumor that, like, a myth that's how the yo-yo started, was like a weapon to attack snakes that can come back.
Okay.
It's one of those things.
I know I couldn't kill a snake with a yo-yo.
I could not either.
I wouldn't want to try.
I wouldn't want to try either. You really only get one try if you're not good at it. If you're really good at it, you can get a couple tries.
But what? Oh man, I don't like that at all.
Because it comes back.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, that's the kind of the last thing I want to talk about. I just thought that was a really funny scene where she just like is whacking at a snake with like a leaf.
And then of course it bites her.
And then it bites her, and she's like, "Damn it! Why did it bite me? You're an idiot.
You're stupid."
All right.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Do you have anything else you want to say about the original?
You know, if anything else, I'd still be talking about the snake pit. So no, I'm good. I'm still kind of stuck on the snake pit.
I'm just gonna look
like if you were
gonna
build a bad guy lair now, how would you? Do you think you could source a snake pit?
I mean, snakes on a plane was a thing. You can smuggle snakes, I guess, if you really wanted to.
Then you got to keep them in a pit. Then you got to keep feeding them. What else were they?
Man, see, the thing is, I'm actually a little afraid of snakes. Like rattlesnake ones, like I think they're creepy. Like I know they're not slimy and everything like a lot of people say, but like when a snake like is hissing, I think it's terrifying.
Oh, you got to get out of there.
Like I wouldn't want to like have to handle snakes. I don't know if a snake pit would be the thing that I'd have in my.
I think that's why you keep them in a pit, right?
Yeah,
so you never
gotta
have
them low, but then you gotta be throwing like bunnies.
That's
down
what I'm
there
saying. Like, where are they getting all the food? There's barely any food out there for them to eat. And they're feeding all these fucking snakes.
So that's where you gotta fucking throw your bad like hombres down there, like
like your henchmen that suck. Like
yeah,
you feed them to the snakes.
Snake can't eat a person.
No, they can't eat a person.
It doesn't work.
I don't know, man. This movie's full of holes. It doesn't hold up.
So I guess we should segue into the second one. So it's time to talk about the 2010 Coen Brothers classic. You know, those independent filmmakers making this remake. You know, bold choice.
Very bold.
Well, actually, this is, you know, of course, Joel and Ethan Coen are huge directors, and they've made a ton of amazing movies. It's really interesting that they chose to do a remake of this of True Grit, you know, when almost everything else they've done has been an original movie.
Yeah, that
they've written.
That is interesting, and it's interesting how closely they stuck to the original.
One of the things that I noticed that was drastically different in this version than the original is the original one. Other than the murder at the beginning of the movie, of Maddie's father.
Yeah.
No other scene takes place at night. Like it's all in the day.
The end.
This movie.
Like like he's riding through the night with her on the horse.
Oh, he's riding through the night to keep her safe,
Yeah.
you know, get her medical care, you know. But other than that, it's like the two, you know, the bookends of the movie.
Yeah.
The 2010 one is not exclusively at night, but I'd say it's a good 30-40% at night.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think some of the scenes, it made sense. Some of them maybe not as much, but I think it definitely added a bit of grittiness to this movie. Truly.
Yep. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. There it is.
All right. So, you know, we'll go over it really quick. The plot is the same. They add a few little scenes here and there. This one stars Haley Steinfeld as Maddie. Once again, a very pretty young, you know, woman. She actually was the same age. She was 14 years old and played a 14-year-old.
Wow.
But once again, they're calling her ugly throughout this movie, and she's a very pretty girl. Like,
yeah.
It's weird that they do that. Jeff Bridges, you know, as Rooster Cogburn, he did do this, like, marble mush mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it made sense. Actually, everybody in this movie had, you know, what I felt to be more authentic accents. Like, in the original one, you know, it's just like that partner.
Kind of.
Go shoot a dog, partner.
Like a robot.
You know, in this one, like, you had, you know, a bunch of different accents. Like you had the Texarkana accents, and you had like these deep South accents from different people.
Yeah.
You had Domhnall Gleeson, who I don't know what accent he was doing. He could have been doing a British accent because we still had people coming overseas, and
I don't think it was British.
I don't know what it was exactly, but it was different.
He died like a bitch anyway.
No, I love his scream was great. I wrote down. Let's see, where's my note on that part? I wrote. He starts talking. Where is it? I wrote so many more notes for this one. So I go, big guy cuts Moon's fingers off, stabs him. That scream, though.
Yeah, I like it.
He was like, oh!
I liked Rooster's line in that one where he said, I can do nothing for you, son. Your partner's killed you, and I've done for him. I'll see you buried right. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh man, that was great. And I think that right there, shows what you were kind of talking about earlier is this Rooster Cogburn is just the way he's portrayed with the same dialogue, because that same line is uttered in the original one.
But I think like that pitiless quality rings through from...
It was cold.
Oh, dude, you're gonna die, dude. You're dead.
There's nothing I can do for you.
Like, you
You're
know how,
already
like,
dead.
yeah, like you watch all these, like in movies and somebody's dying, like, oh, you'll be all right. You're gonna make it, even though they know they're not. And this one is just like, nope.
You're dead,
you're
bro.
You're fucked, dog.
This movie opened with a quote on the screen: "The wicked flee when none pursue," and then it goes into this like voiceover of Maddie talking about how you don't see the murder of the father. She's like, I'm going into town because my father was murdered. I got to handle the affairs. And, Cheney ran, but he didn't even need to because nobody came out. Nobody was paying attention kind of thing. So it opens with a bunch of exposition as opposed to showing us what happened.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of kicks into her going into the mortician to pick up her father's body. And like, because nobody was there, the mortician was kind of a dick and he was like, got the most expensive casket and embalmed the dad, even though they didn't ask for it. So that was one of the things I noticed is I think this Maddie got stronger as the movie progressed, but she did have a little bit like the mortician took advantage of her. And like, I don't think the original Maddie would have been okay with that. She would have been like, nah, you're taking advantage of me. My lawyer's going to hear from you kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think maybe this was a catalyst. Like one person already fucked with me and took advantage of me. I'm not going to have it happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And like this Maddie also didn't have like the pre-prepared letters like the original one did. Like the original one, she had letters ready. Like she knew that she was going to try to go for $300 from like that one guy. And the guy's like, I want a letter absolving me of guilt and everything. And once she got what she wanted, she handed them the letter and it already had all the terms they agreed to. Like, she was a few steps ahead. And this one, like you had to, she does all the barters and stuff, basically the same dialogue, but then gets a letter. She has to write a letter to her lawyer.
Right.
And then the lawyer writes it back, and it's J.K. Simmons in voiceover as the lawyer.
Right.
Which I thought was, interesting. It makes a little bit more sense. I think that's a little bit more believable
than just having all these prefabricated...
all these pre-things. I don't necessarily fault the movie for that. I think it actually makes more sense. It's a little grittier.
It's grittier. Yep.
But other than that, there was a few extra scenes. Like there's a point where she doesn't have anywhere to stay. She sends her like ranch hand, and she like sleeps at the mortician, like the mortuary, in a coffin the first night.
Yeah.
And then
That's
she like stays
gritty.
at a hotel. Yeah, she stays at a hotel the next night, but there's no room, so she like just stays with like the innkeeper's grandmother, just like shares a bed.
Yeah.
Which was weird. There were a few other scenes, like there's like the I can't remember when the other scene, like there's they go to like a couple different markets. There's a scene after the court case, like she goes, like there's just a few extra scenes that I think add a little bit more to it. I don't remember if I wrote down what these extra scenes were.
It's just, there's a little more flavor, it kind of,
Yeah.
it feels more like a Coen Brothers movie, honestly. Like, I think they kind of give you more of these little, like, it's almost like the characters' mannerisms, or like, just kind of the way that they're doing the things that they're doing, that's very stylish and very charming, and like, it makes you give a damn about these characters a lot more, I think, than in the original.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, some of the other things that like the hanging scene was a little bit different.
It doesn't start off with that horrible, stupid song.
Yeah. Well, she goes and like the like you mentioned, it feels a little bit more like a Coen Brother movie with that kind of like dark humor. When each of the guys gets their last word. So like the first guy has this like long thing. He's like crying and sobbing,
Yeah.
that he did wrong. And then the next guy's like, yeah, I killed a man, but if it was somebody else, I probably wouldn't be being hung for this.
Yeah.
It's just because you guys like him, kind of thing. And then the Native American goes to speak, and then they just put a bag over his head, kind of thing. Like, it was shocking, and that's probably what happened. But it was also kind of funny at the same time. But you're like an uncomfortable kind of humor,
Super uncomfortable.
So yeah, definitely a little bit more flavor. I also like there was a scene that they added while they were hunting for Cheney, and they just find this random cave, and Cogburn like just shoots into it, and you hear like the ricochets like choo 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 like bouncing around in the cave. Yeah, like little bits like that, like just a little, like you said, like just a little bit of flavor added throughout the movie. It just made it a more fulfilling experience. I think.
Or like that guy wearing the bear skull, or like that.
Oh yeah, that guy was
creepy
weird.
guy.
He's like, I make medicine. Do you need any medicine?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I gotta tie people down because they don't want the medicine. And then, like you see like a body like hanging over his horse, and he's like, that guy must have put up a pretty big fight for his medicine.
Yep.
Yeah, it was weird. And then he looks
so
at Maddie.
weird.
She's like, you need any dental care?
No.
Like, weird. No.
Yeah, that guy was scary.
Yeah. So I guess we should go into the character. So we kind of briefly spoke about the, Jeff Bridges, but man, he was way gnarlier.
Way
he
gnarly.
Giant
he looks
coat.
like he smells, Like,
He looks like he smells. He had this giant coat. He looks like a drunk. He's just, that marble mouth. Like some things you couldn't understand what he said, but I felt once again that it was more authentic and real.
Well, I mean, when she first encounters him in the original, and she encounters him like unloading these 3 guys, right? And he's like, "Get out of there!" He's like, in the original, he's unloading from like that cart or whatever.
Yeah.
In this one, he's taking a shit. He's in the outhouse, and she's trying to talk to him.
She's like,
I have business with you.
How'd you find me? I went to the sheriff. And the sheriff told me to go to the bar, and the bar told me you'd be here.
Yeah. And she's like, "You've been in there for some time." There's no clock on my business. It's awesome. You don't even see him. You just hear this gruff voice screaming from an outhouse.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was great.
That's way gnarlier.
The courtroom, like we kind of mentioned the courtroom scene, but the courtroom scene was so different, and it was line for line, word for word, like verbatim the same.
Yeah, he's like, "How many men have you killed?" 12, maybe 15. 23.
And he does this thing with his eyes, like, well, I suppose. I don't know what he does. Like his body language was so different. Like John Wayne just kind of sat there hunched.
Yeah, just like waiting for his turn to talk. Like it didn't seem like he was invested in the scene at all. Whereas Jeff Bridges giving an amazing performance
to Jeff Bridges' character. There's just something to it. Like he was alive and gruff and like poking fun at the situation. Like. They both had the joke where it's like, when you backed away, which direction did you go? Well, traditionally, I go backwards when I back away kind of thing. But the way he said it in this was like he still had that gruff marble mouth, but his voice went higher.
Yeah.
When he said it, and people laughed. Like in this one, people laughed, and like you would laugh in that situation.
It's funny.
You don't expect someone to behave like that in a courtroom.
Yeah.
And then,
well, I think it's just, like they're talking about murder. Like they're talking about like he killed these men. And his like casual way of speaking about it is kind of shocking. It's kind of funny, it's like, you approach them with your guns loaded and cocked. It's like, well, if it ain't loaded and cocked, don't shoot.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he even had the line later on in that when he's like, the lawyer tries to accuse him of moving the bodies, and he does this look where he looks really stupid. He's like, well, I don't remember moving the bodies. Maybe the pigs did.
Them hogs rooting around.
Yeah, there were hogs rooting around. And he just he did this thing with his mouth and his face. Like his face got longer when he said it, and his eyes lit up. Like there was just something, or his eye lit up. Sorry, he had an eye patch. There was just something to it where this character felt alive and like a character.
And also, it seems like he genuinely doesn't remember what he did. It seems like he might have been too drunk to remember what he did.
Yeah, it seems like the original one, he might have been lying, where this one, it felt like, fuck, I don't know what happened. This is what I remember. I remember popping up on the guy. He had an axe. And so I decided I backed away a little bit, but then I shot him.
Well, no, and he's like, I shot him. And then the other guy went for his gun. I shot him too. And the other one tried to run away, and I shot him. Winged. Like he's telling a story about how he just unloaded on these guys.
So I think we should go into LaBeef real quick. So this one was Matt Damon, and he had a much larger role in this. So
much larger role, much cooler character. Like, I mean, he's like hammy and stuff, but you still kind of like him,
Yeah, so even though he's kind of a dick, like he's still doing the peeping, this one he takes Maddie, bends her over his knee, and like literally spanks her with his hand versus like getting a switch. And so he's got that creepy point, but there's a point later on in the movie where he makes an art, like him and Cogburn are like arguing about like how where they stood in the war and who they fought for, and they just come to a point where they can't stand each other. They don't want to be around each other. So he tries to LaBeef tries to leave, and there's a point where Maddie goes, "You're the one I should have picked. Like, you're the better man," kind of thing, which is weird. And it almost seemed like she was falling. There was like a kindness, and there was like an emotional attachment.
Yeah.
I don't really know what it was, but that was completely absent in the original one. Like, nobody liked LaBeef in the original one. Like, he ended up sacrificing himself to like save them, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, she saved him from one guy, and then Cheney like cracked him in the head with a rock, and he died. He bled out in the first one, and they just abandoned him. But in this one, there was something to him, and then, you know, they kept joking about how Cogburn accidentally shot him instead of the other guy, because they like in this one they abducted him.
Yeah.
And like he shoots him and saves him by accidentally shooting him off the horse.
Yeah, and he like bites off most of his tongue. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, and he's
too.
like yanking on his tongue and playing with it and everything. So you got a little bit more of that. You got a little bit more of his backstory. It felt a lot more believable. Like when in the original one, when he was like, "Oh, I know all about Cheney. Like, that's why you guys need me." It didn't seem like it. It felt like it was a line that he was feeding them. Or in this one, he did seem to understand, and he like took it as an insult when Maddie was like, "Well, if you know him so well, why haven't you caught him already?" And it did seem like that was his motivation for being there, is that he has been evaded so many times. Like, he needs to be the one who catches him. Like, it felt more real.
Yeah, totally.
And then he ends up saving the day when at the end of the movie, he saves twice. Like, he saves Cogburn in that when he's going up against those 4 guys in an open field.
Yep.
He shoots Pepper, you know, and it was like, that was 400 meters away or whatever. And they're like, and then he ends up, you know, saving Cheney. And this one he survives, but he got a lot more to do. And it does seem that like Maddie may have had like a little crush on him, because even at the end, because this movie ends much darker than the original one does. Way darker, which we didn't even talk about when we did the summary. So it just briefly, like, basically she still gets bit by the snake, and Jeff Bridges' Cogburn like cuts an X into her arm and tries to suck the poison out, and it doesn't really work. So they end up amputating her arm, which is way darker than the original. And then she grows up, and it's like 25 years later, she goes to visit Cogburn at like some fair, and he had like died just days prior. And like she never got married, and she talks about like how everyone thinks she's like a grouch and like nobody likes her. And then she's like, I never really saw LaBeef again, but I would have loved to. And, you know, he's probably dead now, but I'd still love to see him. Like, it was weird. Like, there was some weird infatuation with this character.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a darker ending. Like, this movie was just a darker movie.
It was just a better movie.
It was definitely better. But for the like Cheney, I wanted to talk about him a little bit.
Okay.
I love Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
I think I've liked him. I liked him in Gangsters. Like every movie that I've seen Josh Brolin in, I've liked him in. I didn't like him in this movie.
No?
Like, that accent he did was just weird. Like, I don't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, it was kind of strange.
It was just a weird accent. Like, he didn't have, I mean, it was a glorified cameo. He was barely in the movie, but he just had this like weird, I can't do the voice, but it was like,
yeah, it was kind of like
voice.
whiny, and like, yeah, it had a weird tone to it.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, he felt like more evil in this one.
Well, yeah,
than in the original one, which, you know, it makes sense. Like, he killed a senator, and like he's been like lying about his name to like a bunch of different cities and stuff like that. Domhnall Gleeson as Moon. I actually liked this version of Moon better than the Dennis Hopper one.
Yeah, I did too.
It was a lot more believable. Like, I don't really understand why Dennis Hopper's character decided to spill the beans.
Because
and this one, like, there was no real. Yeah, just it was like, well, somebody needed to. In this one, it made sense. Like, in this one, he had been shot earlier, and his leg was bleeding out, and he was like, "I'm gonna die. I need medical care." And these guys are promising to get me medical care if I tell them where he is. So the motivation for moving the summary, like the plot along, made a lot more sense. And then he gets his fingers cut off. Like, the whole scene was just better.
Yeah, it was much better. It was just, yeah, it was really tense.
But other than that, character-wise, I mean, Barry Pepper was barely in the movie as, you know, Lucky Ned Pepper. Yeah, he looked pretty gnarly. Yeah, they gave him some like crooked teeth and that weird facial hair, but he, you know, there wasn't much to like the bandits. I felt like the original gave the bandits a lot more presence at the end of the movie. I don't feel like this one did it as much, and I'm fine with it. Like, It's not about the bandits; it's about Maddie's journey.
Yeah, it's not about the bandits. I thought they looked cool. They had cool costumes. Those
they
woolly
looked
chaps
cool. They were
cool.
fine. Yeah, I mean, just on a tangent. Like, we've had a lot of tangents in this episode, and it's fine. The costumes were so much better in this movie. I guess we should just transition into the world. these costumes felt authentic. Like when you see like old timey photographs and everything like that, looked much better.
Way better. They looked
Like,
more
they looked-
lived in. They were dirty. They were functional.
Like you said, they looked like they smell.
Yeah.
They had these like thick wool coats and stuff like that. Like all of the characters had these wool coats and these furs. Like,
Yeah.
and that's something that wasn't like the old timey westerns weren't authentic. Even if you go to like Tombstone, which is an awesome movie.
No, they're all super smartly dressed, you know. Like,
Yeah, they're all just wearing like clothes. Like all the clothes look like new pressed
yeah.
suits and everything like that. And that's not what people were wearing. People couldn't afford to have these new clothing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, well, when she's when Maddie talks to Rooster when he's like in that like living in the back room of that store or whatever, where he's wearing like the long underwear and the suspenders, and he just looks filthy. Like, he looks like he's just been laying back there in squalor, like drinking and smoking and being gross. And then like,
yeah, it's something like that. This movie, and to an extent, like the modern westerns have done a lot better. Like this one, Django Unchained was a little bit like Jamie Foxx's character once he got like, or Django once he got like unleashed and everything like that. He was smartly dressed, but the rest of the characters were dressed in fairly authentic stuff. Hateful Eight,
yeah,
same thing. You know, looked like a lived-in world. So I did appreciate this world that looked like Wild West. You know, the movies are, you know, the spaghetti westerns, whatever. Like they kind of glorify it and look like there's the heroes and there's the villains. There's the bandits, the outlaws, and then the marshals who got them. But like when you read about, you know, the true people like Billy the Kid and everything like that, like you realize that like we were living in a wasteland. Like the Old West was like Mad Max land.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, there's like the
awful.
marshals are like
Dysentery.
the only semblance of law. First of all, right?
And they
Like,
were super corrupt.
like you could go kill a guy and just run off where nobody else is. Like that's what the bad guys do in this movie.
Yeah.
They kill a guy and then they just go to where they don't think they can be found.
Yeah, or it's too far away to be worth someone going after.
Yeah,
them
I mean,
kind
it's
of thing.
barely worth it for Rooster Cogburn to get involved. He doesn't want to, you know? Like,
Yeah, it's just
like, nah,
the
they're
money
gone.
is
Fuck
good
'em.
because he killed a senator.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so. Also, the towns, like the buildings looked like they were hastily put together.
Yeah.
Which is how these towns popped up and died. You know, sometimes within years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these weren't permanent towns. A lot of the times, you know, for as many big cities as we have, there were hundreds of, you know, cities that failed.
Boom towns.
Yeah. And so it really felt like this was a town that quickly came. Like you saw these like weird shanty buildings and everything. Like you saw the dirt roads, you saw these old wagons. Like that's the other thing that I don't like about a lot of Western movies. Like the wagons look new, like they're all brightly colored and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like these ones look like, no, these people are just scraping by.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like a much more real world.
I felt like
I
you needed to
fuck,
have grit to live in it.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to live in this time. Like the original one looks like
No,
I could go live there
live.
and be fine. Like I wouldn't have technology, but I could live in the original town. That was fine.
But you
know,
wouldn't
it's-
want to be like an adventurer.
No, I wouldn't want to be in. But here it's just like fuck. I don't want to do
I
anything.
don't want to do any of this. Like so,
Oh, man.
rather than like go like you would not be a marshal, is what you're telling me.
Oh, probably not.
You don't have the grit for it.
Nah, I truly don't.
It'd be a hard life.
It would be a
What
hard
would
life.
you do?
And
What would be what would be your occupation then in that world?
I'd probably be doing what we're doing now, but it'd be like a telegraph guy, like
Yeah. Some kind of operator guy.
yeah.
Or like a storekeeper.
Actually, I could be a doctor there. It would be a lot easier. It was a lot easier to be a doctor or a dentist.
I
back
think
then
all
than
you
it
have to
is
do
now.
is go to town and say, "Hey, what's up, guys? I'm a doctor." No one's
I'm
gonna
willing to
check
yank
it
your teeth
out.
Knowing what I know, I would have probably been the world's greatest doctor back then.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could if you were to transport yourself through time right now,
Yeah.
like you did. It'd be like Back to the Future 3, dude. You'd be basically like Doc Brown. That's what that would be.
All right.
I don't think you could make a machine that makes ice,
No, probably not.
and I don't think you could repair a time machine with 1800s parts.
No, but I could cut a guy open and pull out something.
You
and
could
be
pull
like, "He's
bullets
better
out of
now."
people.
I could do that probably and clean it
Yeah.
much better than they throw some salt in there, some salt water,
Is that
give
what
him
you
some
do?
blood.
Okay.
Yeah, I
You're
could
gonna
do
give
that.
him blood?
Nah, Not my blood.
Not my blood. Where are you going to get blood? You don't have refrigeration. You can't keep it cold. You can't store it. You need live transfusions all the time.
Yeah. I could figure it out.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure I could figure that out, given enough time. Anyway, let's get into what is true grit. Like, what is, like, you know, that was the topic you wanted to talk about. Like, what makes someone have true grit in this world? The way they recommended the three different marshals were completely different. Like, in this one, when he said he was the meanest, it felt like, yeah, this guy is the meanest. Like, he mentioned like a third guy. He's like, that guy always brings the person back alive, and this person knows this, and this. And Maddie was just like instantly like, tell me about that mean guy, Rooster Cogburn. Like, it seemed like this Maddie was like, I don't want any bullshit. Like, I just want the guy who's gonna just fucking make shit happen.
Yeah, she just needs the job done, man.
And it's interesting because I felt like the way they described him, even though they used the same words, was drastically different.
I think that the character just lived up to it more, you know?
Yeah. Like, even though because this one, it didn't show him capture those three guys and bring them back. Like, it was just like he came and killed three people.
Yeah.
It was just a better movie, and it was grittier, and he felt like he lived up to that reputation of being meaner and smarter and everything like that. One of the things I thought was really funny, and we didn't really talk about it when we were talking about the character, was like, you know, Rooster Cogburn is constantly talking about how much better he is, and then LaBeef is trying to say like he's better, and there's a point where they like do this thing, like this pissing contest where Rooster goes to like shoot these bottles out of the air, and then he misses, and he blames it on the gun, and then LaBeef was like, oh, I thought you were gonna blame the sun being in your eyes, you know, and they have this like little tongue and cheek back and forth, and then he reloads the gun himself with his ammo, and then he goes to shoot it, and then LaBeef shoots it out of the air and before he can, and then they do it again, and they each shoot one, and it shows like, no, these guys know what they're talking about. Like, if they say something is something, like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, he was just grittier. Like,
yeah, maybe the grit they're talking about is just like XP, you know? Like, they've done this before. Like, they're not new to this whole, to like surviving in this world, or, you know, just like being cowboys, I guess. I don't know.
In here, like we said, there's just more flavor. Like, I liked that scene with the bottles. I liked when he went and maybe the guy's hiding in the cave. I'm just gonna shoot around in there. It's gonna bounce around, and maybe I'll hit somebody.
Yeah, why not? Throw a bullet in there, see what happens.
There could have just been a random person who'd been traveling who, you know, needed shelter, and they're like, he could have killed just some random passerby in that cave.
Probably wouldn't have felt bad about it either.
No, probably not. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. Like, this movie, like, I like them both. I think they're both good movies. Like, I don't normally like Westerns, and I didn't dislike the original one, but the 2010 one is just so much better.
Way better. 100% better.
Way better. I don't have anything else to really say. I mean, we're just basically gushing about this original.
Yeah, that's all.
I think it's safe to say that we're happy this movie got made.
Go see it. Watch it. Rent it. Buy it.
It's really great.
Stream it. Steal it.
Katrina came home in the middle of me watching it last night, and I was like, you should stay here and watch this movie. And so she watched the end of the movie with me.
Yeah.
But I thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie, like, the whole time through, you know. But the original one, like, I was on my phone throughout a lot of the movie, like, just reading articles about the movies. What are some of the differences?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of strange that, like, reading about the original one is more entertaining than watching it.
Yeah, and this one, like, I was in it. Like, I was not on my phone the entire movie.
No.
You know, you texted me a couple of times. You're like, hey, can I call you? And I'm like, no, I've got like 20 minutes left in the movie. Like, leave me alone. I was engaged in the movie, and like, I'm really glad this got made. It gives me a little bit more faith in that Scarface remake, because the Coen brothers are writing the script.
Yeah.
The director, David Ayer, Suicide Squad guy, I don't know. We'll see, but the Coen brothers can write a good script.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, you know, I don't have anything else. You got anything else?
No, man, that's it. This movie rips.
So, yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Please check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter at MDXpods. Please like and share our content. We've grown really, really fast, but we're starting to taper off a little bit, so we just need a little bit of a bigger audience. So if you like what you've heard, like what you've seen from us on the Instagram, share our post, like it. Please check us out on patreon.com/MDXpods. Of course, you know, we mentioned Audible. Audible is really great. You guys get that free book. So, you know, once again, that's audibletrial.com/MDXpods. and check us out.
Yeah, check it out.
Other than that, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, thanks everybody.